I watched all 10 episodes of The Day of the Jackal. Hopefully, you've had time to watch my review of episodes 1 and 2 because this will contain spoilers. What I didn't want to spoil in episode 2 because I wanted you to catch the Easter egg. We learned in episode 1 the Jackal practiced how to speak German when he opened up the season as the janitor in the Munich killings. In the scene where Bianca studied him, she profiled him as a mimic and mentioned he possibly speaks several languages. At his son's party, he didn't speak Spanish to his wife Nuria or her family, and wouldn't say he loved her in her native tongue either. But when he curbed his wife at the airport and hopped in the cab, he spoke Spanish fluently. That is what I didn't want to discuss. I wanted you to watch the episode first. I got a good chuckle out of that. Welcome back to Unlike Me. Salutations, love, peace, and hair grease. Now let's continue to talk some jazz about The Day of the Jackal. This is my review of episodes 3 through 6. Bianca returns to London with a bag she found in Belarus after the shootout. The bag is the actual weapon, undetectable to security. This find keeps her operation alive. Given the green light to carry on with her investigation, she calls Allison, her mole, to give her condolences, pretending as if she cares that her daughter died. Her partner compliments her performance, and Bianca still shows zero shame and guilt. I think you can tell I have a little bit of feelings towards Bianca that's not so favorable. But let's continue. The Jackal is in Munich, in yet another disguise, posing as a grieving son to extract records from a funeral parlor system to create a list of people tied to Hairfest's family, while his son Elias is in therapy learning how to walk again after what the Jackal did to him in episode 1. Think about the stairwell. The Jackal's wife Nuria and her mother continue to speculate about his absence, and her mother adds to her suspicion with her constant bickering and prying into her marriage, and Nuria finally folds and tells her that she saw him get into the taxi and that he did not get on the plane. Nuria also confesses to her husband that she saw him in town when he calls to check in, and he ends up having to prove he isn't having an affair. But when he declines her offer to join him wherever he is, her suspicion grows and creates the first wedge between them. Allison, aka the Sparrow, and Larry, her husband, mourn the loss of their daughter, but that's not good enough for Bianca to leave her informant alone. While getting some fresh air before taking her daughter home, Bianca harasses her. Give the woman a break. While back at the hotel, the Jackal calls Larry and informs him he's been traced to the remote location in Belarus. Larry suspects Allison had something to do with it because of how she insisted he call his brother for money. When she returns from the uncomfortable meeting with Bianca, demanding that she continue to help her, Larry confronts her, and the jig is up when he goes through her phone and sees she's been in contact with Bianca. Trigger warning for this next part. Nuria rifles through his office and includes her mother and brother in her probing to figure out the code to open up a safe. When they fail, they search through the home repair receipts to see if they can convince the sellers to reset the code. Okay, let's take a pause right here. The Jackal's wife is stupid, in my opinion. You don't involve your family in your house business. From what we've seen, the Jackal has given her a great life, but what he doesn't give her is time, and she is messing with fire involving her family and her issues with her husband, without having any proof as to why she saw him in a cab. Yes, he gaslighted the hell out of her when she confronted him about the sighting, but her mother and her brother have no business going through her husband's personal things. Okay, let's get back to the episode. And again, there's a warning of domestic violence coming up. Bianca gets questioned about warning the Jackal they were ambushing him. When she's done with the interview, her boss, Isabel, informs her privately that there is a mole in the agency and they need to find out who it is. Nuria's in-laws continue to search the home and find a wall safe. The Jackal is now in another disguise as one of Elias Fest's drivers from his photo research, who he murders, stuffs in the trunk, and carries on with his mission to get his money. As he's carrying out his vengeance, the next client representative, Zena, transfers the agreed-upon $20 million, but is asking too many personal questions regarding the Jackal's business in Munich. I suspect that raises a red flag for him, but we'll see how that pans out as the season continues. The Jackal uses his intel on the Fest family and strategically disguises himself to carry out his vengeance on Elias. Posed as Elias Fest's driver to attend the funeral services, the sequence of events on how the Jackal carries out his vengeance will not be spoiled by me. It's a must-see how he pulls this one off, as well as the next episode that is surely to pick up more speed because when this episode ends, Bianca receives a text from Allison that she wants to help her, and the Jackal receives a text alert that his hideaway has been breached as he remotely watches Nuria and his in-laws on camera invading his private space hidden behind the mirror in the wall. As promised in episode 3, the action did pick up. Episode 4 begins with the Jackal escaping the murder of Elias. He daydreams and gets into a fender bender on his way out of Munich. He is then forced to solve it the only way he knows how. You can guess what he does. Back in London, with the mole inside the agency, Bianca and one of her supervisors, Osi, agreed to work in secret about what they learned regarding the Jackal. Bianca's partner suspects she's keeping information from him, and her arrogance further proves him right when she doesn't acknowledge his claim and begins to treat him with disrespect every chance she gets. Back in Spain, Nuria has involved her family into her business, into her husband's business. That is beyond alarming. After watching the footage, the Jackal decides to send for her to join him in Paris. She agrees. We then go back to London, where Bianca is now visiting a former student at the academy where the Jackal possibly attended. This former student does not like her and plays her for a fool. You kind of can't blame him because she just has this horrible attitude and arrogance about her. But let's carry on. He toys with her, gives her the name of a dead soldier who was the best shot in his unit, Alexander Duggan. What he didn't realize is by giving her any information, she's going to use it against him, and that's exactly what she does. She leaves his house, she calls the agent at work that she is treating like crap, tells him to look up this name of Alexander Duggan, and carries on with her investigation. Nuria arrives in Paris, and she and her husband work out their differences with more lies on his behalf regarding what his work entails. I took note here that she addresses him as Charles when he assures her that what he does is dangerous, but they are not at risk, and that he will be done with his business in a few weeks as this is his final job. Nuria agrees to stand by her husband until this job is complete and looks forward to moving on with their lives. The corporation who Xena represents has hired the Jackal and are now meeting to discuss their plan going forward after the news of the manhunt that is going on in Munich for what he has done to kill Elias Fest. The scene then returns back to London, where Larry has killed Sparrow in the hotel room because she's been in communication with Agent Bianca. Angry with Bianca for convincing his wife to betray him, he takes her phone and sends a text message. Bianca believes it's Sparrow reaching out to her. She goes to meet her. Larry attacks Bianca and stabs her, but she escapes into the crowded nightlife of the city. When the sirens of the police spook him, the roles then become reversed, and Bianca is now pursuing him, waiting for her backup. As her backup traces her location, they corner Larry, who gets away by boat. She and the cops then go to the hotel where they know that Allison was staying with him. They find her dead, and Larry is still on the loose. Bianca gets her wound tended to, deflects answering any questions about it with her family, and maintains she is still up to the challenge. Sis does not know when to sit down. The financial revolutionist UDC, also known as Rodin, is the target that Xena was sent to find someone to take care of. He is the Jackal's next big hit. We meet UDC, surrounded by his advisors, discussing if he should attend his big event where he's going to make an announcement for financial equality for all. Against the advice of his security detail, he still wants to attend this event. Back in London, Bianca meets with the only person she says that she can trust, her former partner, Vincent Pine, to discuss the case. Their interaction hints at a past intimate relationship, but we never really get clarification of that, which makes me question why she feels she can only trust him. Meanwhile, the Jackal is testing out the security access to where the event will be held. He scopes out the perfect place to take the shot, and things don't go easy for him. This scene I will not spoil, as it kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. I know he's a star of the show, so I knew that it was going to work out, but it was kind of intense. It's just a must-see moment. What I will say is that I learned that Jackal will do whatever he needs to do to succeed. When you watch this episode, you will see what I'm talking about. This episode ends with Bianca returning home from her meeting with Vincent to find Larry has her daughter held at knife point, further proving there is a mole in the agency. But who is it? Bianca's daughter is now privy to her double life and sees what her mother is capable of. But that's not the only surprise, as the Jackal finds someone waiting for him in one of his properties in Paris. The guy has so many places I can't keep up. I'll tell you who that surprise is in the next episode. Episode 5, The Day of the Jackal. The Jackal's unexpected visitor was Zena, the woman who was sent to hire him as the person to take out UDC. She survives this bold visit. I'm surprised he just didn't take her out upon the sight of her breaking into his apartment, which, like I said, who knows what number it is. He has places all over. Anywho, she delivers some information that startles the Jackal, that the corporation she works for has been in contact with Norman. Norman, as we will learn soon, and I can reveal now, is the person who designs the Jackal's guns. Hearing that her corporation has spoken with Norman goes against gangster rules, if you will say, and it gets his attention. Xena accompanies him to Estonia, where the murder is to take place, because this is the place where UDC is going to announce his plan for financial freedom for all. When they exit her yacht, a few things catches the Jackal's eye. At first I thought it was Xena's driver because he looks like Vincent Pine with the sunglasses on, but turns out that wasn't him. What the Jackal is paying attention to is a woman wearing a disability boot on the dock. Let's continue. Bianca and Vincent question Larry for Norman's whereabouts. They torture him for information and fail at striking a deal with him. Meanwhile, the Jackal has contacted Norman and brags about his craftsmanship, seeking information to use to his advantage, being that Xena has dropped that little bug in his ear, and when he saw what he saw at the dock, he needs Norman's craftsmanship to get what he needs to complete this mission. Now that the Jackal has made plans to meet with Norman, Bianca is still continuing to torture Larry and get him to talk. He eventually gives up a location, and she and Vincent search for Norman in a location near Budapest. As luck would have it, the Jackal is now there, helping him build the weapon he needs to complete the job in Estonia. Paul is hiding at his first wife's apartment. This was a WTF moment for me. Bianca and Paul share some harsh words. He's going to continue to stay with his ex-wife. I have to laugh when I hear that. And she is now in the crosshairs of choosing her career or her family. Which brings us to Budapest, where the Jackal and Norman are working on his boot design. They get to work as soon as the Jackal arrives, and once they're comfortable with one another, the Jackal questions him over a drink about the attack that happened in Belarus weeks ago. Norman quickly catches on that the Jackal is asking questions he normally wouldn't ask, but is pressured to answer him. The Jackal finds out a black MI6 agent is who shot him and wants to know who he has on the inside that's giving him the information and the warning that they were on their way. Norman will not give him a name, but just tell him that he has people on the inside, and the Jackal is not satisfied with that answer, but he accepts it with the warning. Back in Spain, Nuri and her brother Alvaro have a conversation, and the Jackal watches them in his private room discussing her giving him the order to fix what they have broken and make the room appear as if it hasn't been tampered with. But Nuri still disappoints me because when she finally talks to her husband, who was on the job, and promises that they will reunite in a week, she runs back to her brother and complains he's lying to her. Ma'am, that is none of your brother's business. Keep your family out of it. The Jackal and Norman complete the new design of his weapon. It is in the shape of a boot, like the one that he saw the woman wearing on the dock, and when you take it apart, it transforms into a long-distance rifle. He takes his new toy for a spin out in the woods and tunes it to his liking. When he makes it back into town, he sees the MI6 have found the warehouse where he and Norman are working. Norman gets the warning too late to clean up what they've been working on and initiates a shootout with the agents. Bianca brags about her accomplishments and his brother snitching on him and changes her language from earlier. She offered Larry 5 years maximum for telling her what she needed to know. But when she's questioning Norman, she reveals that they would do life in prison. Norman refuses to cooperate, knowing that Bianca is lying to him. So she searches the rest of the warehouse and finds some of the Jackal's things when Norman jumps up to tell her in her face that he knows nothing. The Jackal shoots him from a long distance with his new rifle. A second shootout goes off into the warehouse, which leads to a chase in the woods, and the Jackal and Bianca face off, trading shots in the dark. After several rounds, the Jackal escapes, jumping over a ledge into a body of water, where Bianca furiously blasts off rounds, waiting for his body to float to the top, but it never does, and she releases a lot of anger, shouting into the void. The Jackal then swims to the other end of the lake, seeks shelter in a barn, but he has picked the wrong place to hide. Let's pick up what happens in episode 6. The owner of the property has the Jackal at gunpoint when he wakes, captures him, takes his new gun, and calls for backup to translate what the Jackal is saying. With a wide manhunt out looking for him, the family learns that the payday for the person that their family member is now holding hostage could be a huge payday for them. So they rush to translate what is going on. The man holding the Jackal hostage gets too cocky, forcing him to eat some salted pork. The Jackal steps into action, headbutts him, kills him, and steals his guns. He loads up with bullets and fails to escape before the family members arrive because a car is stalled, and he has to lay the next older gentleman on his back just so he can escape. The younger son, who came to translate for them, freezes and surrenders, becoming a part of the Jackal's plan to get out of Budapest. We're back in Spain now. I have to say, Nuria confuses me. The amount of control her mother and brother have on her is astounding. When the Jackal is in trouble, he calls her to confess he may not make it home. Unbeknownst that she is visiting with a lawyer at her mother's instruction, who's doing all of the talking, by the way, and instructing what needs to happen with her daughter's divorce. And the conversation is surrounding money. The Jackal, let's call him Charles as Nuria calls him, confesses to his wife about the hidden room in his office. She confesses that she already knew about the room, and he pretends like he didn't already know that information and lets out a sigh of relief. Still playing games. Anywho, the camera pans back to her mother's when Nuria interrupts her and tells her that they are leaving because she is going to do what her husband has instructed her to do. Back in London, the agency department head, Isabel, and the agent that Bianca is working with secretly, Osi, plan to sell that they were successful in Budapest because Bianca killed Norman, though they did not kill Norman, the Jackal did, but they're going to take credit for it. They plan to move ahead and give Bianca the support she requests, being that she's come so close to capturing the man of the hour, the Jackal. They order her to return to London, but she is hell-bent on staying in Budapest because the Jackal is nearby. Because Bianca has come close to capturing the Jackal, the office has decided to give Bianca the support that she needs and has requested to continue with the case. But they're telling her that she has to return to London. She argues against it, but Isabel gives her the order, leave what's happening in Budapest to someone else. She needs her back at the Home Office to discuss the next move. And we get a clue into who the mole might be. But in this series, you never know, and when you do think you know, it's not who you think it is. In Croatia, UDC, aka Rodin, the next hit for the Jackal, is now becoming nervous about his announcement and warns the board of his company called River that he's going to set his plan into motion in a few days. They're against it, but he's hell-bent on getting this information out that's supposed to help the poor become rich and expose the rich of all of their dirty deeds and how they don't play the game fairly. When that scene is complete, the young man that's gotten the Jackal successfully to the airport in Budapest begs for his life. Surprisingly, he gives him mercy, and we see the order that he's given Nuria. He ditches the phone, and while waiting for her, he makes contact with Xena to confirm he is a go for the hit on UDC. The agent that I mentioned that Bianca was treating horribly in the office, Damien, is being interrogated because they don't know who the mole is. We then switch back to the Jackal, where he and Nuria have united, and she's brought him his disguise kit. They briefly make up, but she makes him show her what it is that he actually does with that kit. He doesn't want to, but she pressures him, and he shows her how he becomes one of his characters when he turns into a mimic and successfully makes it through the airport in disguise. Because of the shootout in the woods, the Jackal got a look at Bianca. Bianca and Vincent, who were ordered to return to London, are now being diverted to Estonia on Isabel's orders, which causes her and Vincent to be on the same plane as the Jackal, and that gives him an even closer look at the woman who was set out to capture him. The plane lands, and the Jackal has a vulnerable moment once he's checked into an Airbnb, and we catch him crying. But are those tears for what happened in Budapest? Are those tears because of how he scared Nuri as he transitioned into a character in front of her eyes? Or were those tears because his plan is not going the way he thought it would, and this has never happened to him before, and he's never run into these type of problems when carrying out a job? Lastly, are those tears because he regrets what he is about to do to complete this job? I guessed what that moment was moments ago when I said he will do whatever he has to do to complete a mission, and I didn't want to spoil it. I will be spoiling it soon because I believe those tears were for that. But then again, with this man, who knows, because he's a psychopath. He removes his disguise, gets ready for bed, and a cop knocks on the door doing a round because they've had some complaints. He's screwed because the cops know he's in there and he's no longer wearing his disguise, so he has to show his face. But what he does next is clever. Like, share, and subscribe. This is Unlike Me.